Throughout history, we have strived to find truth. Human beings even have a discipline dedicated to that pursuit. It's called science. Science uses a repeatable testing process to discover if what we believe can be regarded as true. No motion, just verity, much like the differences between objectivity and subjectivity. As of late, the lines between objectivity and subjectivity have been blurred, especially in the area of sex and gender. During my search for the truth, I discovered when subjective became objective and who is to blame. And I will relay my findings in this episode of Office of the Patriot. Hello, and welcome to the Office of the Patriot. In this office, I try to make sense out of the nonsense of the progressive left. If you are a subscriber, thank you for your continued viewership. It is appreciated. If you are a returning viewer, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any future presentations. And if you are a first-time visitor to my channel, well, congratulations on finding it. It's usually hidden by the YouTube algorithm. However, I do hope you find the content worth coming back for. My name is Myron Ybarra, and I'm your host. We are seeing a lot more LGBTQ ideology in everyday American life pushed by the radical left and the trans community in America. I mean, you can't turn on the news today without seeing a group of irate parents demanding their school boards remove sexually explicit materials from the classroom, or a family-friendly drag show or story hour being promoted by the local news or public library. Last week, I watched Matt Walsh's documentary, What is a Woman? And if you haven't had the opportunity to watch it, I suggest making time. It is a well thought out and probing look into many of the fallacies behind transitioning from one gender to another. Anyway, after watching this documentary, I began to wonder why such a fringe component of our population is now in virtually every headline in the news today. And bam, I had an epiphany. What if we are seeing this social shift because the lines between what is objective and subjective are being moved and redrawn by the radical left? So what is objective and subjective? Well, according to Merriam-Webster, objective is expressing or dealing with facts or conditions as perceived without distortion by personal feelings, prejudices, or interpretations. And subjective is modified or affected by personal views, experience, or background arising out of or identified by means of one's perception of one's own states and processes. So in layman's terms, objective is synonymous with what we know to be true and factual. The sky is blue. The day is 24 hours long. And there are two genders, man and woman. This is objective truth. Subjective, on the other hand, refers to observing a set of circumstances and coming to a conclusion which is influenced by personal views. And I'll use an example to explain both. If you turn on the hot water handle of your bathroom faucet and you stick your hand underneath the flowing water, you may say it's hot, while I may say the water that's coming out is warm. This is subjective. However, if we both were to place a thermometer in the water flow and record the temperature of the water coming out, that would be an objective observation of the water temperature. Same event, different conclusions. So why are we here? Why are so many Americans now choosing to take a set of facts, such as gender, twist them around, and look at those facts subjectively, but insist that their view be taken as objective truth? As much as it pains me to say this, we are at fault. And what I mean by we is we Gen Xers. Now, we're not solely to blame. The fire was actually started by the early baby boomers, but Gen Xers really propagated it. The start of this new age think came from the phrase parents told their kids. And this phrase was spoken innocently enough, probably out of love and concern for their children, usually to instill confidence. The statement is, if you put your mind to it, you can be anything you want. This type of talk that baby boomers and Gen Xers had with their children is very new when you consider the span of time of our country. This phrase likely took hold towards the end of the 20th century, right around the time when late baby boomers and early Gen Xers were having kids. The generation before baby boomers, referred to as the silent generation, grew up during a time of social and financial hardship. For the working class during this era, college was just a dream, and the most people could hope for was a roof over their heads and food on the table. And that was their objective measure of success during this time. The success, or rather the silent generation, espoused traditional American values. Many of these traditionalist values were adopted by early baby boomers. However, late baby boomers began to move away from traditional American values and began to question moral authority. You can see the beginnings of this ideological change in the hippie and anti-war movements during the 1970s. When this happened, parents began to aspire more for their children than they had, and without a second thought, they uttered those fateful words. If you put your mind to it, you can be anything you want. I can say for a fact, I said it at least once to each of my children at one point or another. Probably to ease the sting of a failure in something they tried, or maybe I said it to help my kids see the potential I saw in them. I said it out of love. However, that statement taken to the extreme has been twisted into an endorsement to move the lines between subjectivity and objectivity. This permitted some kids to believe that their belief is all that is needed to change subjectivity to objectivity, to believe they are born in the wrong body and are, in fact, another gender or even no gender at all. The bigger problem is the radical left saw this chink in the armor of some vulnerable and thus impressionable young adult millennials and Gen Zers. The seed of mind over matter had been planted innocently enough. However, the radical left, like a serpent, watered and nurtured that belief in a whole generation of gullible and trusting people who accepted the lie that gender is fluid and they can be anything they want to be. And once you let that genie out of the bottle, it's almost impossible to put it back in. However, almost does give some room to work. And this work is accomplished by acknowledging the feelings of the victim, but denying their remedy. If I'm being completely honest, this is probably going to be more traumatic and more difficult on you than it will be for them. Right now, acknowledging trans rights may carry a social, if not legal, sentence for those that wish to help their loved ones or friends afflicted with this ideology. I see the trans community as a group of people believing that the grass is greener on the other side, and we all know that it isn't. Dressing up as another gender will not change who they are. Sex and gender are inviolate, and no matter how much they may believe they were born in the wrong body, doesn't change the reality of their gender. Now, if they choose to pretend and dress up as to what they believe the opposite sex behaves like, that's their prerogative. But trying to force others to accept it as truth, or worse, force this ideology on confused and vulnerable children, is wrong and inherently evil. So now, I would like to get your take. What are your thoughts on the reasons for the big push for trans rights we are seeing today? Please take a moment to comment below. Well, this concludes this episode of Office of the Patriot. And if you enjoyed today's presentation, please take the time to like, subscribe, and share my channel on your social media. It is appreciated. And as always, have a great day and stay safe out there.